I want to say welcome to Congressman Craig Goldman from the great state of Texas. You are the congressman from Texas 12, which I believe is Fort Worth. And I want to say thank you because on this podcast, we really are just here to talk about the heart and the humanity behind our political elected leaders. And we have so many diverse leaders. And one thing that I will say is we had on Fort Worth, Texas Mayor Maddie Parker in last season. And I learned so much from her and I learned a lot about Fort Worth. And so as a precursor, I already know a little bit, but I'm going to ask you a little more about Fort Worth. It was an honor to speak with her last year. And thank you for making the time to speak with me today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So let's just go back a little bit and tell us what is special about Fort Worth? What is special about Texans?
Well, it's really interesting question, especially these days, because when I was growing up, everyone said the number one city they would move to and live in if they could afford it, if they could go there, if they could find a job there, used to be Austin. Now, the answer to that amongst Texas is Fort Worth. Fort Worth is a very unique community. I'm a fifth generation of Fort Worth. So my great-great-great-grandfather moved there from Canada via Russia in the late 1800s, actually, to help lay the first TMP railroad from Fort Worth to El Paso. And we know this because there's an article written about him in 1910 to the Fort Worth Press, which predated the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. And so Ike Gronsky was his name. And he was kind of a legend. He seemed to make and lose many fortunes along the way. He ended up being one of the largest sheep herders in Texas history, if not the largest sheep herder in Texas history. So he was a character, no question about it. So our family roots certainly go back to him. And actually, he's buried in Fort Worth. And so it's been very interesting and fun to learn that long family history. And there's certainly a pride in being from Fort Worth. My father was born there. My grandmother was born there. Her mother was born there. So there really is a pride in having that lineage and being from there. And it's a very close community. Well, we're now the 12th largest city in the nation. We just overtook Austin as the fourth largest city in Texas. And yet we still feel like a small town. In fact, I still am shocked when I walk into a restaurant and I don't know somebody.
Yeah.
Because growing up, you walked in a restaurant, you knew everybody. But we keep growing, and it certainly has become an incredible place to raise a family and to do business in.
Now, you talk about being multi-generation. You got your start by working in a family business. And I did too. And I worked with my father for a bunch of years. I started working when I was pretty young, like a young teenager, because I'm on the weekends and on my vacations. But I kind of got that feeling that that's sort of how you got your start. Can you talk a little bit about working with your father, working in a family business? Because that is about being in the community.
Sure. And my grandfather started that business and he ran it until the day he died. My father took it over from him. And then the type of business consolidation began. Of course, I thought I was going into that business. And then junior year of college, kind of my moment, what am I going to do? Because my dad sold the business. So, but at 8 years old is where I learned how to drive. I sat with his lead guy in the warehouse, James Castle, went in the very back of the warehouse. And so I learned how to drive a fork truck back then. Of course, I was little. And, when I say I learned how to drive, my feet didn't hit the pedals. But I was moving the steering wheel and avoiding hitting, cases of wine and things like that. But no, and worked every summer there and every winter break I worked there. I mean, literally going up from 8 years old, I remember opening Dad's mail in his office. And so he worked 6 days a week, certainly put in the work ethic mode and model to all four of us kids. And to this day, we all, we're not a sit around family and go lay at the beach. Nothing against that. But I think because of that model that my dad and mom, because mom worked too, and yet every single night there was dinner, homemade dinner on the table. We rarely ate out because mom and dad loved having family dinners where we sat around, no devices back then, actually sat around and talked and communicated about current events and our lives.
Yeah, is that, I always ask people about their childhood. And when you said it, it made me smile because it was like very similar to what I grew up with, which was you just had to be home by 6 o'clock for dinner.
That's right. Ours was 7 o'clock. That's right. That's when Dad walked in at 6:45 every night, and we knew dinner was at 7.
Right. And I don't know about you, but like in my house, there was a meat, a vegetable, and a carb. And you got to eat it all before you get the dessert.
Yeah. Yeah. We rarely had desserts. Dad loved salads. So there was salad,
Yeah.
And certainly a protein and at minimum 2 sides. Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. And I'll just say this. My mom used to say, you have to eat everything. There's people starving in the world, and we ate everything.
that's right.
It was just one of those things that I still, this conversation brought back in.
Yeah.
Talk about a little going to school. So I've asked all of our leaders if they had a teacher or somebody, a coach or somebody at school, and it could be multiple, but that saw them, mentor them, because I am firmly a believer that children have incredible families and diverse stories, but there's always teachers that help them.
Well, there's no question, but Mrs. Saul for me in fourth grade. I mean, that was my favorite grade, and it was all because of my teacher. Everybody in their lifetime has that special person growing up. And think about how much time we spend at school. I guess my biggest problem was I went to a private school, a small private school in Fort Worth, but it was kindergarten through 12th. So everybody knew everybody. I mean, I remember being a kindergartner, and to this day, I know people who live in Fort Worth who were seniors or juniors in high school. And we laugh about that we were a close-knit community in that school. So every teacher knew you. So it's part of the reasons why I enjoy going to the University of Texas and just being a number and kind of being lost in a class of 500 people. Because for 13 years, I grew up to where everybody knew each other in the school, and then every teacher knew you from kindergarten through 12th grade. No question about it.
And I think it is special, but I get that you went to a university where you could be a little bit anonymous also.
That's right. That's right. It was
Small
exactly right. For 13 years, it was enough. So I wanted to go get lost a little bit for 4 years.
Yeah. And then also, I want to talk a little bit about your community, your Jewish community in Fort Worth, and how important it is. For you, it's about a Jewish community, but I think communities are so important. And I also know in our case, we have been, as a Jewish community, feeling a lot of anti-Semitism and feeling a lot of hate. And for me, I don't answer that with hate. I answer that with like understanding, truth, and love. And, keep putting that out there. But I think it's an important piece. You're an elected leader, but you also are a Jewish man in a community, and your shul is an important place. Could you talk about where you are in this moment? And it's not a political thing, because it isn't about Republican or Democrat. It's not about anything other than how we treat humans, I believe.
That's right. I agree with you 100%. And again, we have Temple Bethel in Fort Worth. We have Avos Shalom in Fort Worth. We have the Federation in Fort Worth. All three incredible, important organizations and opportunities for people in the Jewish community to go and to do whatever, either go to school, to pray, to have community, all incredible places. And again, obviously the Jewish community in Fort Worth, it is small compared to other major cities, but very close as well. I mean, certainly my grandmother was confirmed there, my father was confirmed there, and I was confirmed there. So we certainly all pretty much know each other as well. And sure, take the politics out of it. And at the end of the day, we're all Jewish Americans or American Jews, however you want to look at it. And our sense of community is extremely important. If you want to talk about the anti-Semitism part of the thing, I've spent 12 years in the Texas State House, and we had heard time and time again about this growing anti-Semitism on college campuses. I always, whenever I asked about it, and I'll respond to it in this regard today, all that is, in my opinion, is a tremendous lack of education.
Yeah.
And we need to do a better job of grade schools, of middle schools, of educating high schools, and on our college campuses, of educating people. Because it's really easy to hate when you don't know someone or you don't know who they are, or you've never met a Jewish person. I mean, I can't tell you how many people told me when I was elected to the Texas State House, 150 members, how many people came up to me and said, I've never met a Jewish person before. A lot of people from rural Texas who had never even met a person before who happened to be Jewish. So again, it's all about education. That's why I was very proud of Governor Abbott. He had an anti-Holocaust commission, but we changed it, we amended it, and made it a Holocaust anti-Semitism commission. And Neil Goldberg from Dallas is the chairman of that and does a tremendous job. The commission does a tremendous job of reaching out to schools all across the state,
right?
Lower schools, middle schools, high schools, whatever, and saying, we have whatever material need to help educate people in your area.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful and important. And a lot of times people wait till young people are in college. And like you've said, we need to start a lot earlier and telling the stories. And
That's right.
so I think that is important. And knowledge is, people have I always say people have a right to their own opinion, but not to their own facts, right?
That's right. Well, there's a school, Kip. It stands for knowledge is power, and there's no question about it. Better educated people are, in my mind, you can't do a better job than educating people. And the more educated people are, the better we are as a society.
I agree. I agree. And talk a little before we move on, because also I know that you're involved very much in the Women's Center of Tarrant County.
Yeah.
And I see your smile because I did look it up, and you do amazing work there. Could you talk a little bit about that and what it means?
Well, I was on the board there, and then I got elected to the state house and decided I had to leave the board only because I didn't have time to serve there anymore. It's an incredible group of women and incredibly dedicated to helping other women. And it became a major cause of mine and why I passed, in my mind, incredible legislation in basically focused on helping women. I passed Molly Jane's Law. Molly Jane Matheson was a young girl in her early 20s who was murdered in a horrific way. And the guy who murdered her had almost murdered, if you will, 2 or 3 times before, and then murdered Molly and then murdered another girl 3 days later. We believe that could have been avoided because he was arrested and detained but released, if not 2 times, 3 times before he met Molly. So we passed a law to try and prevent that from happening in the future. And so it's those type of things that I took my experience being on the Women's Center board and took it to legislation in the Texas legislature. So
Yeah.
really rewarding.
Yeah.
But it was that education at the Women's Center again, growing up where I grew up, very rarely to hear about anyone really on extreme hard times. And then you go sit on the Women's Center board and you get a whole different view of life and education of what, specifically what some women go through and have gone through. And man, your heart just bleeds for them, no question.
Yeah.
And then you want to help them to get out of that situation and give them hopefully a future.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And, I think about also the recent floods in Texas and the loss of lives and children. And I know, not being a Texan, being an American, it has touched me. And I also know from people in Texas how it's brought people together.
Yeah.
And I think that that is what I'm trying to do on this podcast, which is really talk about the beautiful parts of our humanity. So what I do honor that this is your state and what you've been through, I couldn't just pass on and not say something. But I just would love to know what your thoughts are, because obviously this is something that is devastating. And I know from October 7th that everybody in Israel felt something, even if their family wasn't exactly affected. Church people across the world felt it. And I feel like your tragedy there has a similar impact on so many people that just feel so much tied to that tragedy.
For the first time in my life, a major tragedy in Texas, in my opinion, affected the whole state.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
just saying, this is
well, and across the country, you're right. But my point is, if you didn't know someone directly who passed away or family was affected, you're one person away from it. I mean, my neighbors across the street from me knew a family from Beaumont. They grew up with them that perished. And then next door to them, he was a former college football official, and his fellow college football official's granddaughter died in that flood. I mean, it's so tragic and just, I mean, literally, we've all been somewhat depressed since July 4th. And July 4th for all of us will never be the same again, because we're going to think about that day. We're going to think about what those little girls went through, especially what everybody went through. And I will say this, no one understands the scope or the grandness of, if you will, or the power of that water unless you go see it. We went down there the day that President Trump was there, and Jake Ellzey, fellow congressman, he and I drove up and down the Guadalupe a little bit. And you just don't understand it. You can see it on TV, you can see photos of it, but unless you see it personally, you don't understand how big and grand and powerful it actually was, and just tragic. I mean, that's the only word you can use to describe it. And you're just thinking about all those who lost their lives, innocent people who were there to celebrate a holiday and just tragically lost their lives.
Well, we will pray and hope that for their families that
No question.
be healing because it's a challenge.
No question.
Yeah.
No question.
About family, you balance between being in Fort Worth and going to DC. How does that balance for your family and for your life? How do you manage to do it all? Because few days a week in DC and then you're back in state, both for family and for your constituents in Texas.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's one thing that's been hard. I'll start on the constituents first. It's been hard to explain to constituents that I spend so much time in DC because as state rep in Austin, I could go back and forth easily. And I could attend an event at a night, some dinner or something like that, and then drive back to Austin the next morning and be there in time for votes. Can't really do that in DC. And in fact, a great family friend, John Brumley, his funeral was last Tuesday. I wanted everything to be there for me to be able to honor him and be there for the family and express my condolences. And we had votes up here in DC. So that's what's extremely different about being in Congress than as a state rep. So that you really want to be at events in Fort Worth and in Weatherford, because I have parts of Parker County as well. So you want to be at events in your district, but literally you physically can't be there. So, it's great to send staff, but I personally like to be at events as much as I don't have the opportunity to do that as much as I did when I was a state rep. For family, it's relatively easy for me. I'm single, so I don't have kids. But those who do, it's a commitment. There's no question about it. The things that you miss. And of course, I was around people with Matt Krause, who's from Tarrant County as well, had 5 kids. Wow. And the number of things that he missed as a state rep. Now he's a county commissioner and he can attend all their events.
Exactly.
Lucky guy. But you do miss out. And this is, you truly are a public servant and hopefully doing good for the districts you represent, but you definitely miss out on some amazing family events. But we try to have family dinner in Fort Worth. My parents are still in Fort Worth. I have a brother and sister-in-law and 2 nephews and 1 great niece. So we try and do Sunday dinner, whatever other family can come in for it. We try and do every single Sunday night.
I love it. I love that. What is the worst advice and the best advice you've ever received?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, the best advice is the advice that not only that I gave out as I became more and more in leadership in the Texas House. And so I'm now living that advice here as a freshman here. I'd meet with the freshmen. And I didn't know. I mean, it truly took me 3 sessions, and maybe I'm a slow learner, but it took me 3 sessions in Austin to truly understand how the place worked.
Yeah.
And it is kind of like high school when you go in as a freshman because you got to start with relationships. And you can't pass a bill unless you have good relationships with people, like it or not. And so, one of my freshman colleagues had a great piece of legislation. Well, he didn't start off having a good reputation with people. And so a senior member took that bill and that person filed it and passed it. So it starts with relationships, and it's basically keeping, your ears open and learning and listening. So that was probably the best advice I received as a freshman, that I carried out my 12 years and then passed that on to the freshmen, if you will, that came in. And so I'm living that advice now as a freshman here, and it's worked out well so far. Worst advice I'll have to think about and get back to you on.
Okay, that's fine. Your answer for the first advice of good advice is important. I think it goes across the board. It's not just in politics. It's about taking time to learn. Listen.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It goes back to that learning aspect of things.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. I now have rapid questions. These are going to be get to know Craig, and they're fun ones, and answer as you wish. Favorite sound?
Ooh, I like the sound of thunder.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I like the sound of thunder. Good crack of thunder.
Favorite color?
Dark blue.
Nice.
I should say burnt orange, but I'll say dark blue.
No, this is just about what you got a dark blue suit on. Okay.
I know.
Yeah. Favorite scent or smell?
Eucalyptus.
Oh, wow. That's a beautiful one. Who is your biggest cheerleader?
My mom.
Nice. She tells you the truth, right?
Oh, well, my mom and dad, but my parents, yeah.
Yeah. Favorite sports team?
Texas Longhorns.
And if you look back, what was the TV or couple TV shows that you watched growing up?
St. Elsewhere.
Uh-huh.
If you remember that one, that was a great TV show. One of the first medical shows. That was a good one. Eight is Enough, I
Well, Eight
watched.
is Enough was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eight is Enough. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think growing up.
Good. I know I'm throwing that into you. Like it hasn't been in, but I always think back to like, what did people watch growing up?
Yeah. Charlie's Angels, Treasure Island, Fantasy Island. Fantasy Island scared me.
Exactly.
Yeah, that scared me. I think that ran from 9 to 10 on Friday or Saturday nights.
Exactly.
And that scared me too much. Yeah.
Okay.
That was a pretty dark show.
Yeah, it was. Speaking of Fantasy Island, let's say you're on an island and you have one meal that you can have. What would your favorite meal be?
Pasta, any pasta dish.
Any pasta dish. Okay.
Any pasta dish.
And what would your favorite dessert be?
Anything with chocolate in it would be good.
Okay, cool. And now you're on the island and you need to exercise. What's your exercise?
Well, I used to run. I can't run anymore because the older I get, the knees work. So I tend to ride a stationary bike now.
Okay.
I've heard too many horror stories of people biking around town and falling as they get older and breaking anything and everything. It's kind of like snow skiing. I used to snow ski a lot. I stopped doing that because I just fear of crashing and breaking something and getting too old to have something repaired. So
I hear you.
Stationary bike is my go-to exercise these days.
Yeah, but those bikes you can get really good geography on them. You can go to a lot of places. I've noticed.
Yeah.
What's your music choice? If you had a favorite music?
Oh, I'm all over the place. I can listen to symphony. I can listen to hard rock. I can listen to classic rock. I can listen to jazz, country, old country, not new country. But I'm all over the place. Yeah, come with me because I tend to like to just be home. And when I'm home, just my playlist is wild. It's all over the place, just depending on my mood.
Have you read a book or any book in particular that you've read that's meaningful to you at this moment?
I'm in the middle of reading The History of the House of Representatives. It's a great book, and I look forward to hopefully finishing it. I'm going to Israel with AIPAC at the beginning of August for 10 days. And so hopefully I will have plenty of time on the planes and on buses to read that entire book. It's really thick, but it's been fascinating to read about literally the history of the House, how it was started, and it's just going through literally from day one up until the writer stopped writing about, I think it was 10 or 20 years ago. But it goes with the entire history of the House.
It kind of goes with your best advice, which is to learn what you're doing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, from that to if you had a household chore that you could say that you're good at or you like to do, what would it be?
Clean the kitchen.
Okay.
I like a clean kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah, because I like to cook a lot. And so I love going to restaurants, and I know if the kitchen is clean and spotless and they're back there cleaning as they're cooking, that the food's going to be quality and they care about cleanliness. So those are the places I tend to like to eat in because, I like to clean as I go to and have a clean kitchen.
I like that. What is Craig's superpower?
I can make desserts. I can. My dad, who is a cheesecake fanatic, I learned how to make cheesecake, among other desserts. But he says my cheesecake is better than any New York cheesecake that he's ever had. So I am forced to make cheesecake for every single major family event that we have, every family meal. So any holiday, other than Passover, of course, I have to bring the cheesecake.
I love
Dad's not request insistence.
Okay, good one. That's a secret now. Everybody knows that if they need a cheesecake.
That's right. I made them so that's gotten around Fort Worth, and so I'm known for if you want a cheesecake, call me and I'll make you one. So yes, a lot of people have magically received cheesecakes around the city.
I like that. That's a good one. Okay, we're gonna go to the last question, which is in a funny way, you just sort of answered it. My last question is, what is joy? What brings you joy? And if you have joy, how do you share your joy? So I think that you have shared joy with cheesecake, which is a beautiful thing. But in addition to that, both like personally or professionally, you're in a world where, and I'm going to be honest, I don't care what party you're on. I think there is a little bit of a deficit of joy in our world right now. And so I believe as leaders, as individuals, people listening, we can all find joy in things and share that joy. I hope.
It's a great question, and hopefully I have a good answer in that. I really, truly find joy in providing joy for other people. I love my family and my friends, and I have great joy when we get together and break bread and, have a good meal and drink a good bottle of wine, and that's joyous in my life. But also being able to bring joy to other people's life, and I'll give you a couple examples. My staff doesn't like the fact, but I do it anyway because it's easy. I ride the metro to work every day here in D.C. I ride the metro from my apartment to the Capitol. And so 3 times now I've met families. I see families. In fact, one kid was wearing a Texas Longhorn shirt, and his older brother had his headphones in, and his parents were looking at a map, deciding where they were going to go next. And I looked at the little kid, and I just gave him a hook 'em horns, and he shyly gave me a hook 'em horns back. And I said, Are y'all going to the Capitol while you're here? And he turned to his mom and she says, no, we don't have a tour set up. And I gave the little kid my card at the end of it. I said, that has my cell phone on it. You text me, you'll get a tour of the Capitol. And so they came up and we gave them a tour of the Capitol. And so that's joy to me, is being able to, do something unexpected for somebody else that to bring them joy and bring them happiness. So if we had more of that in this world, man, what an incredible, great place we'd all be in.
Yeah.
If our number one jobs was to bring joy to other people.
And, this is what I said in a recent, somebody asked me, one of the people I was interviewing said, what brings you joy, Liz? And I had a few things. And it mostly was about the health and watching children and my family be healthy.
Sure.
But the other one was when you walk into a restaurant or into like a Subway and you see people and you just say hello and you smile.
Yeah,
and
that's right. That's right.
And see, they go from like make this to like smiling. That's so simple. And kindness is easy.
I'll give you an example of that, because as I travel the nation, being a Texan, if I'm going in, I'll hold the door open, especially for women, and the shock on their face. And they're like, whoa, thank you. That doesn't happen here. I go, they wouldn't allow me back in Texas if I didn't hold the door open for a lady. So yeah, so those little things in life that are not expected, that should be expected, right? That are not, that hopefully the goal is to enlighten someone's day or enlighten their lives, if you ask me. And so try and do that.
You're doing it. And I think that this conversation shares that feeling and that emotion. And I hope that people will get to listen and feel some joy and appreciation for who you are as a human behind the political leader that you are. And I know we're drinking coffee virtually, but yes, I look forward to one day drinking coffee, coming to Fort Worth, sitting with you and Maddie Parker.
Oh, that'd be great.
But in the meantime, I just want to say thank you. I never met you. I saw you once, but I've never talked with you before today. And really, you touched me. And I want to say that I feel the joy in our conversation. And I wish for you only good things. And thank you for joining me on the Capital Coffee Connection podcast.
Well, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you again. And anybody watching or listening, feel free to contact our office. Can't promise you I will personally give you a tour of the Capitol as I did that time for the families, but anybody who's coming to D.C., we want to make your time in D.C. extra special, or expect the unexpected. But we're happy to set up tours and arrange anything for you, because it's a special place. And I walk up the stairs. When I go vote, I walk up the stairs of the Capitol. I don't take an elevator. I walk up the stairs and look at the dome and look at the American flag, because we have incredible history here in our country. And, we're an experiment that nobody else in the world had done back almost 250 years ago now. And look where we are. And it's the best country in the world. Everybody wants to come here. And it's a special place to live. It's a special place to raise your families. The opportunities are endless. And so I'd love to share that with anybody who comes to our nation's capital as well, to show them the history and what we're doing currently in Washington, D.C. and in the United States.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Liz. Please join me for coffee to talk about heart and humanity with our elected leaders. Remember to hit subscribe to get an alert when a new episode is live and for exclusive content. Ciao.